It's either me or the game.
What?
It's either me or the game.
That didn't work. Are you serious?
It's either me or the game.
So one of you gotta get thrown out.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get thrown out, but I'm gonna leave.
Where you gonna go?
The young couple that you've just seen in the intro to this video, we're going to return to their story at the very end. The final 4 minutes of this video will be edited excerpts showing this young couple disputing whether or not the young man would be willing to quit video games in order to stay with, in order to do better with this relationship with the young woman. I checked their social media. As far as I know, they are now preparing to raise a baby together. I do not know if the young woman was already pregnant at the time when they recorded this video. Following up on my earlier video about video games, I received this broad question of how does one really know what is bad and what is good amongst the things you might do in your spare time, whether that's playing video games or learning a new language. I am not an uncritical fan of what's called Socratic method. On the contrary, when I first came on social media, one of my punchlines was hashtag Socratic method is dead. I think in many ways, both within academia and in our struggling with political problems, personal confrontations, and disputes in real life, I think there's a sense in which Socratic method is both extremely overrated and historically misunderstood. Most people don't understand the game that Socrates was playing, how and why he played that game in his own time in ancient Athens. Be that as it may, nevertheless, with these sorts of broad questions of good, of asking in our own lives, in direct application, what would be good to do, it's remarkable how rarely we really deal with disputes over the meaning of the word good, over questions of what is good, what would be good, if we just engage in a little bit of Socratic dialogue. And I think one interesting sign of how easy it is to come into contact with what we mean by good is that very often we can resolve a dispute with someone else just by reframing the question, not in terms of what they would like to do themselves, not in terms of their self-interest, not in terms of what would be good for me or for you, but of just putting in one stage of detachment and asking them what would be good for their own son, what would be good for their own daughter. It's a more powerful question, partly because there's a degree of detachment there, but also because very often we love our own children more than we love ourselves. We care more about the goodness of what our children do with their time and do with their lives more than we care about what we might do ourselves. I knew a man, I'm going to tell the story very briefly because I've mentioned it on YouTube before. I knew a man who worked in a slaughterhouse for several years. I don't know how many years. And he was full of excuses and rationalizations that working in a slaughterhouse was perfectly good, that it was a good job, that he wasn't ashamed of it, that he didn't feel traumatized by it. Seeing the animals being chopped up by machines, hearing their screams, seeing the blood, smelling the corpses. Most people who even visit slaughterhouses are really struck by these things. The sight, the smell, the experience, so on and so forth. But there's a certain visceral level on which many people who work in slaughterhouses will admit it's horrifying, or will admit that it's a strain on them, shall we say. They will admit that it is bad. But this guy I was talking to, he insisted that it was good and that there was nothing bad about it and that he didn't regret working in a slaughterhouse. And he said that he would be happy to go back and resume that job. And in the future, he would take the same job again. And yet his whole attitude, his whole demeanor changed when I said to him, "So what about your own daughter? Would you be pleased? Would you accept it if your daughter grew up to do the same job you did in that same slaughterhouse?" And he sat there and he shuddered, looking straight ahead, breaking away from eye contact with me. He didn't want to look me in the eyes. And I could see he was saddened and disgusted just imagining his own daughter working in that slaughterhouse. What's going on there? What's going on for him psychologically, morally, and ethically? That guy, I think he basically thought of himself as a bad person. I think he basically thought of himself as a piece of crap. And there's no doubt he was comfortable feeling that someone like him, that he himself was not too good to work in a slaughterhouse. He thought of himself as a rough and worthless knockabout character. And I think he thought of himself as a tough guy. He did not want to think of his own daughter in any of these ways. I've met his daughter. I think he wanted to imagine that his daughter could do something better with her life, that his daughter could be a good person. I think he wanted to imagine that his daughter was too good to do that job. And of course, he could imagine, in terms of his daughter being a very sensitive child, he could imagine how the horrific and horrendous nature of working in a slaughterhouse might really change her as a person. Okay? Implicitly, the excuses that he was making for himself working at a slaughterhouse, he would not make those same excuses for his own daughter. Likewise, people seem to make a lot of excuses for playing video games themselves. But if you refer to their own son or their own daughter, what would be good for your own child's future? Would you approve if your own son played video games for 6 hours a day? Would you be okay with your own daughter playing video games for 6 hours a day? If we start to frame it that way, then it seems to give us just enough detachment that we can see clearly, oh no, wait, if my son or daughter were playing video games the same way that maybe these individuals make excuses for themselves playing video games, that would be a bad thing for their future. That would not be good at all. It would be a bad thing for who they are as people. So in this question, I just say, it might be very interesting to have a conversation with someone who was so alien from you and I morally that they really genuinely didn't know whether or not it was a good thing to learn a language in your spare time as opposed to playing video games. If they genuinely, in an open-minded way, they really didn't know what was a better use of their child's time, let's say. Like, do you think it would be better for your son or your daughter to go and take lessons and learn Chinese as opposed to spending the same amount of time, let's say 3 hours per day, playing video games? I've never met anyone from any culture who genuinely would not know or would feel some doubt in comparing those two things, who just wouldn't be able to discern which one was good and which one was bad, or of the two alternatives, which one was better. Now, these things are culturally loaded. They rely on cultural knowledge. I've lived in some places where I was surrounded by kind of illiterate farmers and so on. Would it be good or bad for you or for your son or daughter to learn Latin, the Latin language? I think some people already have a level of cultural familiarity with Latin and why it is important, like why the literature is important, why the politics and history and philosophy are important, but also maybe linguistically that learning Latin can actually improve your ability to use the English language, and it can improve your ability to learn other languages like French and Spanish and so on. That, Latin is useful and it's valued culture in other ways. Some people culturally would right away be able to say, oh yes, learning Latin is rewarding and important and good. It's good for you. It's going to help you become a better person, and they valorize that culturally. They have no question. Maybe someone is, so ignorant and so divorced from that culture that they couldn't appreciate that, and they might genuinely think that playing video games for 3 hours a day would be better than learning Latin for 3 hours a day. Right? Try to imagine who that person might be. Like, okay, even if we go to Japan and we meet a farmer in Japan, let's say it's a bamboo shoot farmer in Japan, and this guy is just not an intellectual in Japan. His whole life he works on this bamboo farm, and you say to him, well, you know, what do you think would be better for your own son or daughter? I notice you have a son or daughter who's now playing video games 3 hours a day. Do you think it would be better if they started learning Latin? So culturally, totally alien from Japan. If you just had a very brief conversation about what Latin is and why it matters, oh, well, it's this ancient language, and there's this literature and history, and, you know, it's influential in these different ways, and it helps you. I have difficulty even imagining an illiterate Japanese bamboo farmer who wouldn't be able to appreciate or discern that something as alien as learning Latin would be good. It would be better for who his son is, who his daughter is, for the type of person that it would benefit them, that it would be a good use of their time, compared to sitting and staring at a glowing screen and pressing buttons on a control pad to simulate the action of shooting your enemies in the head again and again and again. Killing people with the press of a button through a crosshairs and watching their bodies explode. The type of repetitive, mildly violent, simulated activity that these video games seem to offer for people's gratification again and again for that same period of 3 hours a day. Okay? So when we're talking about video games, we are talking about something so self-evidently bad that almost any of these comparisons I'm being asked about here, and I think the person asking is sincere, it seems to be impossible to really entertain this kind of debate in a sincere way. I mean, you're asking me, is it really better or worse to spend your spare time playing video games as opposed to writing? Okay, so you know me. Do you think I would be better? We could do this as a bet. What if I took just 2 weeks where every day for 3 hours a day I write my own autobiography? I write the story of my life. Or 3 hours a day I play the most popular video game on the internet right now. I believe that's Fortnite. I haven't Googled. You could, you know, obviously. Okay, it doesn't matter. Fortnite or the current Super Mario Brothers game on Nintendo Switch. Okay, I could go. I have the money. I can go buy a Nintendo Switch and start playing the new Mario game. Okay, what would be better for just 2 weeks, 3 hours a day, writing my autobiography? Or I don't think that highly of the value of writing my own autobiography. I don't think that's. I mean, it's much more difficult to say what would be better, to learn Latin or write my autobiography, or learn Chinese or learn Latin. Those are difficult comparisons. Playing video games versus writing. Okay, theater, poetry, going to a museum, walking in nature, reading literature, learning a language. You're seriously asking me to compare these to playing video games. You're seriously asking me which one is good. Okay? Working in a slaughterhouse is so awful, it's so revolting, it's so brutalizing, it's so disgusting that almost nobody really sincerely wants to reflect on how good or how bad it is compared to working in a library. I'm not going to glorify working in a library. Most of your time working in a library, you're just putting books on shelves, you're sweeping the floor, you're doing customer service. Working in a library is not terribly meaningful. However, working in a library versus working in a slaughterhouse, engaging in Socratic method, it just seems like there is no possible debate to be had about what is good here. We're not going to enter into a profound reflection on the meaning of good or what it is to have a meaningful life, all right? And we're in this same bleak realm of self-evident, self-destructive behaviors when we look at the prospect of spending 3 hours a day playing video games compared to almost anything else. including taking care of the ones you love, including having sex with, making love to your wife, your girlfriend, caring for, waking up in the morning, making pancakes for the woman who is, in this example, pregnant with your child.
Literally, ever since I woke up, you've been on the game. You've been on that chair all day. Only time you got up was when you went to go get the food. And look, see,
What?
your fucking lazy ass has been here for like 1-2 days. You still haven't put your apple shit, whatever.
I got that yesterday.
You haven't even talked to me. The only time you talk to me is when the game is over and you only got a little bit of time so you can go on to the next game.
You lying.
Ain't nobody lying out here. Like, you really been on that game all day. I'm tired. Every time I wake up, I can't ever wake up next to you because your ass is always on the game. Do something else productive when you wake up.
I am being productive.
Go cook me something to eat. Wake me up to fucking breakfast in bed. I always gotta tell you I'm hungry. Some good
You know we
stuff.
ain't got pancake mix.
I don't care. You go
always-
out and get some.
You always say something about some pancakes. We ain't got no pancake
Because
mix.
you know I like pancakes.
No.
All that mile goes into the game.
What? That made no sense. All this mind goes into that game.
Yeah,
If
all
I'm
what
focused-
you think of is about the game.
My mind is not on the game.
All the time. Yes, it is. You don't even get up to clean
And
up.
you don't have
I
a-
gotta wake up and clean up all the time. I gotta wake up and do everything that you made a mess.
What am I supposed to do? Sit down and look at the wall? Get on my phone? The phone gets boring.
Okay, you can do other productive things.
What does the game
What?
have to do with anything? It's a video game.
No.
Everybody plays a game. Nobody else be complaining about they nigga playing a game or something.
Okay, and not other females though.
No.
So you compare me to other females. Oh, they don't do this and that. They don't do that.
No, I'm just saying, there's no reason to complain about a game. I'm not doing nothing wrong but playing a game.
I don't care. Get off the game.
Oh, can I finish? I just got purple shield.
Get off the game. I'm about to turn it off.
Stop! I literally have a dope ass loadout in this game right now. Now you're bugging. Calm it down. Let me just, at least go engage into a fight and.
It's either me or the game.
What?
It's either me or the game.
That didn't work. Are you serious?
It's either me or the game. I'm not jealous.
You're
it's that
jealous
you're
of
on
a
it all the
game?
time. You don't talk to me no more.
That game makes you jealous?
That you don't spend time with me no more like you used to. You don't talk to me. As soon as I wake up, I have to say something because your fucking eyes are right in the fucking game all the time.
So you're making me choose you
Yeah.
over a game.
Throw the game out or just make me get out and I leave.
So one of you gotta get thrown out.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get thrown out, but I'm gonna leave.
Where you gonna go?
Don't worry, it's me or the game, period.
Babe, you know I'm gonna choose you over a game. But that doesn't make no sense. Why am I throwing the game out? Because you're jealous of a game?
Okay, well throw it up. Go. Trash is right here.
You're gonna have to give me a little bit of time. Like, I just can't throw it out.
I don't care. Before I break it.
So first you said throw it out and now you're gonna break it.
Yeah, because you're not willing to throw
I
it
just
out.
bought a new gaming headset. What? So I gotta choose the game over you?
I don't know, it's your choice. So what you gonna choose?
Everything. Which one makes me more happier? I am happy when I play the game. But I'm also happy when I'm with you.
You really had to think about that.
I'm playing. I just told you I'd choose you.